Pastor Armin was saying Lou eats meat or something or chews up. Actually, it all started off when I went hunting with him. And I don't know where we were hunting, someplace near here, and one of the guys we were hunting with somehow was climbing down the tree, got his pants hooked on a nail, and he was laying upside down, and that's where we found him that way. And actually, hunting with him sort of gave me a thirst for going to extremes, the extreme world. So it's all his fault. We've worked in Afghanistan right after the Twin Towers were hit in 2001. And actually, there's a guy knocked on my door. We were staying inside this compound, and I begged God. I said, God, if you ever get me out of here, I promise, God, I will never come back. And that I did. That was a prayer. And a guy came knocking on the door, and there was a doorman normally who would have taken care of that. I slid open the little thing where you could look inside, and he said, "Are you the people of the book?" What book are you talking about? He says, "Well, I had a vision last night." Huh? And he said, "I had a vision of Christ, and he told me to come here." I said, "Are you secret police, or are you Taliban? Are you Mujahideen?" I said, "Come on in and we'll talk about it." 3 months later, we climbed over a fence. We took a ladder, climbed over another fence, got into a pool because there's a big festival in Mazar-e-Sharif, and we baptized him. And he had already brought his best friend to Christ, and he started 21 groups of young men for Christ. And please don't think that God's not working where it's really hard, because God does what He wants to do where He wants to do it. Actually, 2 weeks ago, about this time, I was speaking at Les American School in Switzerland, and there are about 200 kids there. Most of the kids are from families from mafia, from Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, and they're drug lords and other 200 kids. And we had an ice cream Sunday evening, and none of them believers, most of them Muslim. There's Saudis there from the prince and princesses of Saudi Arabia. And, I said, how many of you would like to make a difference with your life? They pay $100,000 to go to this school every year. They buy a table in Geneva that costs $5,000 an evening, and they get all the drinks served and all the meal and everything, and then they go and they party all weekend. I said, your life's a little blip. It goes, beep, and that's your life in eternity. And what does it count for? What does your little blip count for? And I said, we work with trafficked kids up in northern India. You can stand at one point where it's 18,000 feet. You can only be up there for about 20 minutes before you get edema and you go unconscious. But you can see Afghanistan, you can see Pakistan, you can see China. You're standing in India, and if you look far enough, you can see K2. And if it's a real clear day, you can see Mount Everest. And between that point and the next church, you have to travel 3,000 miles. And there are people who live in the deserts of the Tibetan deserts, and they have never heard the gospel. Now, people from Nepal come up through the deserts, and they come over, and they come into India, and they carry packs for soldiers. Now, women are treated like dogs. And when I say treated like dogs, they're treated like dogs, kicked around, and when you want to have relationships with them, you do it. And they sell their children. And you can buy a child for $10. $10 will buy a baby. And as our friends were just saying, you know, if you're not meeting somebody's need and demonstrating Christ, why should they believe in your Christ? Why should they believe in you? You know, you could say, everybody says anything and everything. But if you're not living it out, and so we take them in. We're caring for 200, and we want to care for 2,000. 5 years from now. We do threefold ministry up in Kashmir. I actually talked to Rob Muir's uncle, and I called him, and I actually emailed him, and I said, tell me the most difficult, the hardest place, the most dangerous place, the hardest place to get to. Where is it on earth? He said, the Kashmir. I said, well, that's where God's calling me. And I tell you it is. But I take young people just like you with me because you make huge impact on lives. I want you to read something if you've got the stomach for it. It's called The Blue Notebook. You can get it on Amazon.com. It's written by a girl named Baku. Baku is Nepali. She was taken from this area. She was sold into the sex slave trade. And she tells about her life where she was put in a cage with other kids, and they're put out on the streets like dogs. You know, you go to puppy shop, and all the dogs are in a cage. And a man will come and say, I'd like to have her tonight. She's 9 years old. And she will service 9 or so people that night. And they take children from about 6 months old. And we're at the top and the world, and we try to take the kids before they get sold. Jan has a big responsibility. See, you can't stop the selling of children unless you tell moms that they have value. You don't have to be kicked. You don't have to yield to what a man says. You're not a dog. You're a human being created in the image of God. So they take the women and they paint their nails and they make them beautiful and put hand cream on them and they love them and they share God. And you know something? 200 Nepalis have come to Christ. But now they're paying the price. You see, the Buddhists are saying, and where we work is very Buddhist, very Muslim. If you go to church one more time, you lose your life, or you lose your job. And if you keep on going, you lose your life. And so they change the dates, and they move them all around, and they move Sunday morning to Saturday night to whenever they come. They come in secret, they come together, but they come. I'm going to show you 2 videos because I want this to grab your heart. You know, have you ever asked yourself, what are you living for? What are you alive for? What's your little blip in eternity worth? And I want 2 videos to tear your heart out tonight. First one you're going to see is called The Selling of Innocence, and I want you to get a hold of what it's like. They do it in America. They did it in the streets, and our friends here have seen that sort of thing. But I want you to think of what it's like. I was speaking in a church last Sunday in a conference, and there's a guy named Ricky that came with us, and while we were sitting down ready to come and share, Ricky brings me an email. Came out of Kashmir, where we built this house for 200 kids, and said one of the fathers came, separated from his wife, got his 4-year-old daughter, took her out, and he sold her into sex slavery because he needed the money. 4 years old. We're going to watch the movie, and then we'll talk about some other issues. Let's go watch it.
Nam Children are among the most cherished and vulnerable in any culture, yet many suffer under great abuse, and some are intentionally exploited. Trafficking women and children for sexual purposes is as lucrative in the black market as smuggling drugs. The U.S. State Department estimates that the number of women and children that are trafficked globally each year is over 1 million, and children make up almost half of that number. Southeast Asian countries such as Thailand greatly depend on prostitution to support their economy. Here in Bangkok, almost half of the people prostituted are less than 14 years of age, and very young children can also be purchased.
We're just looking for younger girls, below 18.
Take to your room?
Yeah, I mean, we'll take to our room or whatever.
Just somewhere you should have, but cannot take outside. Only make love in the room.
Right.
Somewhere cannot take outside, but I have for you. I have for you, but cannot take outside. Because too young. For make love only, no massage. Just make love only.
Thousands of men from the West and other parts of Asia come here as sex tourists. Most just don't care how old the girls are that service them. Others come here specifically to molest children and then return home without anyone knowing what they have done. Even though it is against the law in most countries to prostitute children, corruption on the local level still prevails.
I saw police went in there.
No, don't worry.
Are we okay here?
Yeah.
Why are we okay?
Because the policemen then ordered.
Either laws are just not enforced, or the government and police actually profit from this exploitation. This is a border crossing from Cambodia to Thailand where cameras are not allowed. Thousands of people cross the border every day, and hundreds cross illegally under this bridge. Most of them are children that are used to smuggle items into Thailand. This little girl is being used in this way by her own family. She is very vulnerable and extremely high risk for sex trafficking. Once she is away from her family, she is picked up on the other side to be used in any fashion imaginable. Border police know what is going on, but do little to stop trafficking of any kind. Boys are also used in the growing sex industry. This little boy is a child of a woman working at a local brothel in a town that is almost completely dedicated to sex tourism. He's only 2 years old, yet he has been sold to brothels on 3 different occasions by his own grandfather. Each time he was bought back by his grandmother, who also brought him here, where he is now safe. Children growing up in this environment do not remain untouched by it. This is a pornographic movie house where dozens of men gather nightly. The number of places like this in Cambodia has increased significantly in the last few years. And with them, gang rape has increased at an alarming rate. Men and boys openly admit that they have acted out scenes from these movies and that children are regularly targeted. In South Africa, over 21,000 cases of child rape were reported to police in the year 2000 alone. It is believed throughout Africa that having sex with a virgin will cure AIDS. This has contributed to the rape of many children. Children that are poverty-stricken are among the most exploited. But children from wealthy countries can be entrapped in the sex industry as well. Although it may seem unbelievable, this is not just a problem somewhere else. It is a problem everywhere. Each year, thousands of children are trafficked into Western Europe, and another 320,000 are trapped in the sex industry in the U.S. Most of us don't want to believe that molestation and sexual slavery exist on such an enormous scale. But these atrocities are very real. Many organizations and missionaries are bringing hope and healing to thousands of children that have suffered under horrible abuse. Many people are working very hard to combat the problem, but they are often overwhelmed. We must not allow sexual abuse to remain hidden within our churches or thrive in our communities. There are few things as fundamentally evil as buying and selling children for sexual purposes. The magnitude of this abuse is evidence that we are living in a broken world that needs so desperately to be redeemed.
I hope you got your heart gripped, torn out of your chest this evening. We live in a a place and work in a place where there are 200 kids, and we want to expand it to 2,000 within the next 5 years. We're working at a lower altitude where there's a Buddhist, where there's a school. It's called in Mato. And there's a woman there who's been there for over 12 years. And when I went up there, when Rob's uncle told me to go, she's the only one I met, actually, in the beginning, and then I met others. But there are 25 million people who live in the Kashmir. And if you take all the Christians with every kind of creed, from Catholic to Seventh-day Adventist to whatever you've got, something Christian, there's probably, maybe maximum 300. 25 million and less than are in your church in that whole area. We work at 3 altitudes, and I met this woman, and some 12 years ago, she was there with her husband, and they took over this school, this Buddhist school, and outside every morning, and it's extremely cold there, they started saying the Lord's Prayer and a few hymns. And the Buddhists came, the Buddhist priests who have a monastery right above. And if you have YouTube, you can see the Buddhist monastery. It's called, the YouTube video is called Oracles and Demons. And it's made by Columbia University out of New York. And the language is university students because they film it, so just understand it's not evangelical. But you'll get to see exactly what it is. And they stoned both of them. Assuming that she was dead, they drug her into a pen with animals. The next day, she had come to consciousness, and they took her to another town where she survived. Her husband left her with her little baby son. And you know what she did? She went back. She went back. 12 years later, I met her. And she told me her story. I've been here by myself for 12 years. I said, you've got to be kidding. She's local. And she says, every morning we stand outside. We sing praises to God. We say the Lord's Prayer, and we start our day. Her teachers are Hindu, they're Muslim, they're Buddhist, in a Buddhist town, and the people love them. We take young people just like you, and we take them to the school. We're redoing the school, 25 years, there's no heat. It gets down to minus 30, minus 40 at night. No heat, no lights, no bathroom. The walls were coming down. We've refurnished it. We've repainted the school. We're putting in a playground. We're putting in a cement playground. We're building a guardhouse. We put up a wall around the place so it'd be, the Buddhist priest used to come in screaming and yelling. She's small like April. And she's meek and mild, just tender, she calls me Sir Lou, and she's just, if you thought if you touch her, you'd break her. And they scream at her, and she screams back. She says, as long as I'm here, this school will be Christian. And I said, can I work with you? 5 years from now, we're looking to the Lord to plant a church. How do we do it? We send students home with the little kids. And they stay with the Buddhist family, and they love it. They're so happy. They're so and we just said, don't go home. Don't go to their house and pray. Just go home and share your life. Just be Jesus. Just be Jesus right in front of their face. And they come and they ask questions, and all of them have returned. All of them have gone home into the homes, have come back a second time. 5 years from now, we're looking for the very first church in that town. And we're looking to the Lord for two Ladakhi pastors who will be trained for the work of the ministry. That's at one level. At the same level, we're working with the kids, the little kids that are trafficked. You're going to see a few pictures of them. They're small, and we go in. When I first went in 2 years ago, They ran. They just scattered like mice when they saw my white face, and then my ugly face, I guess probably was the deal was. And then now they come in and they love us and they hug us and their snotty noses all over. And then, you know, Ricky's a big guy, he's huge, you know, and like your pastor, and he's got kids on each arm and he's swinging them around outside. We're playing and they're jumping on us and we're loving them. And Jan's teaching the moms that come and then they sing a song. They all declare the song. And they sing this song, "Once I was a slave, but Jesus set me free." I can't tell you what that means. I was a slave, but Jesus set me free. And then we go into the highlands. The high highlands are already high. You have to acclimate twice to get up there to the highlands where the nomadic tribes live. They're Tibetan nomads and they're Ladakhi nomads. They have never heard the name of Christ. You know why no white men have gone up there? Because it's so stinking cold and so hard to sleep on your back. It's at the same altitude as Mount Everest, between the base camp and the advanced base camp. It's right in there. There are actually people who live there. They herd the Pashmina sheep and yaks. And there are two schools, one for Ladakhi, local people, and one for Tibetans. And we went in with a team of students, and they loved the students. There's 200 in each one of them. They loved us, and we just shared our lives with them. Please come back, please. And I said, we'll be back. We'll be back. And by God's grace, we are the first people who have ever gone in the Tibetan desert in this whole region. And I'd like to take you. You know, I told you 2 Sunday evenings ago, I talked to the 200 students. None of them know Christ. 50 volunteered to go. 50. And they're not even Christian. They don't even have a heart for the Lord. 50. And I said, I'll take the best 5. The very best 5 of you. Well, I'll take you because you have a purpose. Because you can demonstrate who Jesus Christ is. There's a woman, you can't see her, she's selling her baby. She's just a little tiny baby, I don't know, maybe 3-4 months old. No, smaller than that, 2 months, 3 months. It's in a styrofoam beer box, you know, the thing to keep a cooler. It's way up on one of the passes. It's cold. It's just so stinking cold. And she's selling her baby inside for $10. $10. There was a girl who said, I want to buy her. She's on the team. I said, great. You can't take her with her, and you become mom, but for the next 17 years, she's your responsibility. But it's okay, because she'll come to Christ, she'll learn a trade, and she'll become a missionary. Jesus commands us to go. Pastor asked me to speak on Genesis 42, and I'm not going to go into it. You know, it's when Joseph's brothers come. And I just want to share this. They do come. They contact him. But you know, way back in the beginning, you remember what they do to his brother Joseph? They throw him into the what? Throw him into the pit, and they sold him off. It happens every day. It's no stupid Genesis story. It happens every day. He didn't get sold into a cage into sex slavery. They just threw him in the ground. And the Ishmaelites, the modern day Muslim world, bought him out. Happens every day. He sees his brothers for the first time. They don't recognize him. Get on a couple of chapters more and he weeps for his brothers. Oh my goodness, brothers and sisters. I want to thank you for standing with us, for Jan and I, for such a long time. But I want you to go. Give me 2 weeks of your life. And I'll guarantee you'll never, ever be the same. You may take your iPhone and pitch it out into the field when you get home. Sling it, because it consumes more time than you ever give to Jesus. Thank you so much, Pastor. Yeah.